is the fourth day of the Cyberweek and the first day of the main plenary. We're going to have a second day here tomorrow. And during those first 3 days, we had an amazing schedule. We had so many crazy events. We had the future of cyber warfare, academic perspective on cybersecurity challenge, the fintech event, the cloud day, the cyber risk insurance, besides TLV, the cyber challenge, the aviation and cybersecurity session. We had so many interesting sessions, and we still have a long way to go before this week ends. For example, today, after this session ends, we're going to have the Cyberstorm event, which is some kind of a cyber competition, or you're going to meet amazing entrepreneurs. You're going to see the cutting edge technologies of the future. So I recommend that you will stay in this hall after this event ends. Now, allow me to ask, if this is your first time in Cyber Week, please raise your hand. Wow, this is amazing. I think about 50% of the people, this is their first time. So the old-timers, please join me in welcoming the first-timers. Just clap your hands for everyone who is here for the first time. Now the first-timers, listen carefully. We have a tradition here in the Cyber Week. If this is your first time here, the tradition is that every time you meet someone, you have to start by telling this person your e-banking username and password. That's the way it works. You will meet so many interesting people. I've met, in my first year here, I met so many interesting people. Everyone came to me when I did that. I met a prince from Nigeria who is an amazing person. He's also my cousin and my lost sister. I'm not sure how did it work. We're still very well connected. So ask around. The Israeli way is just, I told you that, talking to everybody, asking questions. So feel very free to talk to everyone. This is very, very important. I want to call to the stage the next person who is going to present. He is the Director General of the Israeli National Cyber Directorate, Yigal Unna. The stage is yours.
Hearing me? Great. First challenge is going on stage after Many Barzilai. The toughest challenge in my role as Director General of the National Cyber Directorate so far, but I hope I'll meet it. And my e-bank number, you know it by heart, so it's okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Cyber Week. This is my first time as the Director General of the National Cyber Bureau, Directorate, sorry. The Bureau was until last December, and what's happened after that, I'm going to talk about a little shortly. What I'm going to share with you is some of Israel's experience in cybersecurity, where we were and where we're heading or planning to go next. But first of all, about cyberspace, I think the numbers here are still on the move. We haven't seen the end of it. We're not even close to the singular point of where the internet, where the cyberspace, where the humankind will be on the digital life and working with the ICT technologies. But we see the pace, we see the pace, we see the learning curve, we see where we're going, and it's going to be much more digitalized, much more connected, much more using computers and ICT. What we're facing. When we talk about cybersecurity, first of all, we need to see and to face the threats. And not only the threats, the global vectors. The global vectors that we recognize here in Israel are mainly these. You can see the data, computing and cyber, but it can easily describe as data, data, data. Today's, the new, not so new, but the most dominant ingredient of power between countries, between corporates, international, multinational corporates, is data, and who controls it and how to control it. Next is the global race for the next digital leverage. We're all on it, not only government, but also multinational corporates and other companies. We want to be the first and the best. The next, the game rules, still under construction, and I don't see in the horizon where it's going to be settled down or where we're going to have an equilibrium or a balance between all the powers that work in and still trying to shape these rules. Privacy and data control, I think we're all aware of what's happening all around us on the Facebook hearing and other cases. And the new tech giants, some of them will be joining us later. Chris Young, the CEO of McAfee, and others are here in the Cyberweek, and you're going to hear them later. Another vector is the technology. Technology we have a full day long, and won't be enough to describe all the technologies that are relevant for Israel to the next steps, but worth mentioning a few of them. The artificial intelligence, the quantum computing, the new data structures, as we see, the virtualization, remote access, cloud computing, everything go from our physical premises out there to the cloud or whatever, wherever it is. And the IoE, not only IoT, Internet of Everything. It goes into biological tissues, it goes to everywhere, everything, anytime, and we're more and more connected. As I mentioned, the singular point is still on the way. We're going there. And last but not least, authenticity and biometric and other blockchain, other means to make sure that who we claim to be is really who we are. Another vector, more threatening vectors, are the threat actors, or threat vectors. Specifically, we can describe a few examples. First of all, the most disturbing is what we see as state-level campaigns. The most famous one for the public know is the Ukrainian case. Here we can see in a way of about 4.5 years what happened to a country that attributed to Russia in this case, but hackers from different groups attacks Ukrainian critical infrastructure, financial, democratic system, political system, financial system, everything, and you see its ongoing process, and they suffer it, and it can happen to any other state that targeted and aimed as such. A second vector, threatening vector, is what we call strategic targeting, specifically influence campaigns. The most famous one in recent years is, of course, the US presidential interference, again attributed against Russian elements. We see the footprints, we see the multiple measures of hacking of hostile content using all the internet can offer us in order to manipulate and influence the public opinion. And my favorite example is old as 5 years ago, April 2013, when 4 hackers hacked into Associated Press Twitter account in the middle of the day, 2 weeks after the Boston Marathon explosion, again 5 years ago, and issued this fake news. Back then, nobody knew it's fake news. So the stock exchange looked like this. See the spike? The spike costs about few dozens of billions of dollars, just because of Twitter account of highly reputable Twitter Associated Press news agency, and the economic impact of such an act. By the way, those 4 hackers belong to the Assad regime, the Syrian Electronic Army, and they use it in the context of the conflict between US and Syria back then regarding chemical weapons. So there's also financial impacts. The common denominator of those targeting is trust, trying to undermine the trust of open, democratic, liberal societies against their governments, against the system, against the democratic system, political system, financial system, whatever. And you don't need to fully collapse, to kill all the electric grid, or to have an outage in water. You just need the manipulation or the pinpoint, the targeting of 0.something percentage of the whole system to gain the impact, the psychological impact, and to influence. And by using cyber techniques and cyber activities, you can gain that much more easy than it was ever in history of mankind. And that's what we are troubled, and that's where we should be concerned and take care of. But there is more. When we talk about super weapons proliferation, we see the more and more what used to be exclusive weapons, super weapons, only for the restrained, responsible superpowers is now leaking or abused, because unlike kinetic warheads that detonates when impact, the cybernetic warheads are code that can be, in most of the cases, reused or abused against those who created it. Next is supply chain. I think no need to elaborate on this. We all use things that not manufactured by us, not only in Israel, not only in the UK or other countries. We use things that were manufactured and created somewhere else. We don't have any control or fully control how they were designed, how they're designed by security. So we get them, we use them, and we hope for the best. And CNF. CNA, CNE, CNI, you already know. CNF, computer networks, fraud or financial aspects. The numbers are just rising all the time. Ask Atlanta mayor and others who suffered from attacks, ransomware attacks and other attacks. We can see the numbers, the cost of those attacks just rising up all the time. And the numbers, you can argue if $6 billion or $10 billion, but this is the direct cost, estimated cost of cybercrime around the world. And it's just growing more and more. Last, the threat actors themselves. Well, I will not be more specific, and I apologize for that, for the specific threat actors, but we can mention the two major vectors. One of them, the asymmetry. We are much more vulnerable as democratic, open, digitalized, depending on digital in our media and our daily life, than most of our opponents that are less digitalized, less developed, and less restrained, and less vulnerable for counterattacks or for the same methods they use against us. And we see the cyber arms race is on the move all the time. So, although it's a lovely morning and a lovely Cyberweek, I'm afraid that we're still haven't seen the worst yet, and winter is still coming. And the good news, we can and we are preparing, in Israel at least, and with our like-minded partners, to this winter ahead of us. And how we're doing that? Very shortly, our experience begins 16 years ago in Israel, when the government decided to put the responsibility of critical infrastructure guidance, cyber, then it wasn't, the term cyber was not invented yet, so we used information security assurance, and the Shabak, the Israeli security agency, got the mission. Back then it was, I think, about 10 critical infrastructures. Today is more like 40. It took us about 10 years to establish the National Cyber Bureau directly under the Prime Minister, and another 3 years, and then in beginning, the early of 2016, to establish a new operational cybersecurity authority, the National Cybersecurity Authority. And it took us about less than 2 years to understand the separation is dangerous. It's not good enough, and we converge it into one directorate. The directorate was before, but it wasn't a joint directorate. Now we have a joint directorate comprised of these two elements. And these are the main two missions, the basic missions of our directorate. First of all, and before everything, securing Israeli cyberspace, which is not an easy task. The second is the development of Israel posture in cyber, and here we are working with our partners, and I will elaborate on that. Very shortly, Israel's cybersecurity strategy, based on this pretty simple diagram. First of all, secured and safe cyberspace. As I think most of you already know, but I'll mention it anyhow, the concept of operation is based on three-layer framework. The first of all, the robustness, simply to describe, is how to reduce the attack surface of the Israeli cyberspace, and there's a lot to be done, and a lot already is done there. Basic hygiene, how to wash hands and wash fruits and vegetables before we eat, and the analog of that in the cyber life. The second is understanding that in this world, eventually, we're probably going to get hit. We're going to get sick. And the resilience is how fast and how easy we can recover and how low the damage is caused by those attacks. And last, national defense means that it's not like natural phenomena. It's not earthquake. It's not something that comes out of viruses. It's about human beings. Nation state, terror groups, or individuals who want to harm us, who want to do damage. Then we need to take care of them as we do with other negative elements. And this is the task of the police, of the military, of the security apparatuses. The resilience is something that we are very proud of, and this is something that we today give for any civilian. You can call star 9344 24/7. Any one of you can call and get an answer by the Israeli National CERT under the Directorate, sitting, by the way, in Beersheba, who can give you first aid, the emergency, and if it's an attack that is with a higher leverage or higher dangerous, we take care of and deploy IR teams and others. The second is making sure that each of these elements has an address, has a responsible address to take care of. And here we see that we have today all covered with agencies that knows it's their responsibility. Sometimes we have some overlapping, but we prefer some overlapping above one another than the option of gaps between the responsibilities. Last, but not last, but very important, capacity building. Here we put a lot of efforts in these elements. And you cannot maintain cybersecurity and be powerful in cybersecurity unless you invest resources and attention in these fields. First of all, human capital, the basic of all what we do in cybersecurity. Second, academic research, and here the Blavatnik Center, led by Professor Ben Israel in the Tel Aviv University, is one of the leading, if not the leader, in this field. We have 6 research centers all over the Israeli academic arena. And the numbers, we're going to see more in the next presentation, but the numbers of Israel industry all the time rising up. And we're mostly proud of the right part of the slide of multinationals, multinational companies that are arriving here and sharing with us, putting investment. They all get profits from it. They all have gains from it. They don't do it just voluntarily. It's profitable. Last but not least, maybe the most important, is what we call the international cooperation. In this, we are still in the early stages. We are looking for more and more opportunities, partnerships, cooperation with our partners all around here. In this Cyberweek, we have a great friends of us from the US, from UK, from Singapore, from many other countries, and we're looking for more partnerships because united we stand, divided we fall. So, to sum it up, 2 fields of specific interest of the Israeli National Directorate. First is civil aviation cybersecurity. In this Cyber Week, we had 2 days ago, for the first time, a session about civil aviation security on premise of the Israeli Ben Gurion Airport with 100 members from all around the industry and the relevant agencies. And you can see here, I'm trying not to get too deep down because most of you are flying back home. So let's just say that make sure that if you can prefer an old Dakota with propeller engines, it's much preferable than the other alternatives. If not, get a good sleeping pill and hope for the best. We're working on this. On the other field of interest is, of course, the MediSec. Here also we face in the last year and last month more and more cases of abuse, of ransomware, of vulnerabilities discovered in many medical devices, medical equipments. And we see even last month, for the first time, we see the issuing a recall of medical devices by the FDA because of cyber attacks, because of vulnerabilities discovered in the cyber attacks. So, where are we heading? First, we are now on verge of issuing an architecture of a new state-level defense shield. We call it, as you can see, we have few elements. First of all, the high castle, detection, investigation, and mitigation capabilities. Second, the crystal ball, intelligence fusion and analysis. And the showcase is tools to raise the level of readiness and risk management. Above all, or under all, the infrastructure of Cybernet, I think many of you already know it, and some of you, the Israeli members, are a member of it. We're looking for a network, data sharing and distribution network. We already have one working. Last year, Prime Minister was standing here on the stage and mentioned 200 members. Today, a year later, we're 600 members, all trusted. It's unclassified, but a sensitive network. And everyone in Israel, it's like a social network they can share among CISOs, among cybersecurity community. The next is from compliance to outcomes. It means that we don't want to stick only to the guidance of the letters of what we're used to issue, or still issuing. We want to offer best practices, we want to offer trusted vendors, we want to offer whatever needed, and demand from the critical infrastructures from others to bring the outcomes, the bottom lines of what we need and what can be measured in cybersecurity. Something I believe the UK already began with, and we're trying to also to have the Israeli model relevant with the insurance industry also, and with other industries. The new cyber law, I'm happy to announce that today, in a few hours, we're going to launch the first draft of the cyber law in the probably long process of approving this law, the legislation process, and it formalizes what we're doing today and putting a framework, a legal framework for all the actions that are already done and should also be done in order to maintain and get cybersecurity. The next and last, International Cyber Coalition, something that, as I mentioned, we're only on the beginning steps of that, and we're looking more and more to raise to open up and to build a strong operational cooperations. So, in this manner, I'll summarize and say, we're looking for working because at the end it's all about people. It's not about computers, it's not about networks, it's about people, and people from the bad side or people from the good side. We must remember we are the weakest point of all this process, and we need to put more and more attention how to build things properly and how to bring together people and others. Don't follow this recommendation, just remember the example. So, I wish you very well. Have a good Cyberweek. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is about to arrive here. Take Professor Ben Israel advice, and after the long day, only after, of course, find the time to go out, go around, not only the campus, but the beautiful Tel Aviv, Yafo, and see the shores, see what's around. It's a beautiful weather today. Last week we had a Singapore-like storm weather with the rains in the middle of June, but today it seems nice, so don't forget that. And don't forget to leave Many Barzilai your e-bank accounts and numbers and passwords. Just a few more seconds.
Microphone. Yeah, let me ask you a question. We have a minute or so to fill up. So let me ask you a question. You are doing amazing things, and to some extent, the future of cybersecurity in Israel is on your shoulder. And we know that the future, to create a safer future.
That's relaxing.
To create a safer future, Israel cannot stand alone. We have to collaborate with other countries. We have to join forces. So how do you achieve that on a practical level? What can we do here in the Cyber Week to promote the collaboration between Israel and other countries?
Just come to us, approach. We're meeting with many of the foreign delegations here, but whoever that haven't met with us yet, please come forward later on and let us know you. Let's get together and see. In 99%, if not 100% of the cases, we find a common denominator. We find a common grounds to work with. And what's nice about cybersecurity, unlike other security areas, is it's much more easier to cooperate, much more easier to share information in open sources of information and others in order to achieve a better place. And what we're looking at is not only for Israel, because Israel is part of a network. The internet is a network, global network. So as anyone that has, even corporates, not only governments, that have ideas, have programs, have something that wants to share with us, we are more than willing to accept and to see the opportunities, how to work together, how to share things, and how to bring everyone together in order to achieve a better, safer, and open internet for everyone's use.
So, perfect. So I think that one of Israel's secret for being such a dominant country in cybersecurity is the fact that we have a very strong ecosystem. And I think I'm